Hi there. Welcome to Tech Talk Weekly. I'm Bob from Creation Station. This is our weekly show where we give you 3 or 4 interesting tech topics in the news, get you in your way in about 20 minutes. Do you know where your bugs are? Wait till we tell you how important they are to you. This week, my guest is Miss Maria Vega from the Hollywood Library. How are you doing?
Fine, thanks. How are you, Bob?
Life is great. So what's going on? You've been on the show before, but you had a very different position. Tell us about what you do out there now at the Hollywood Library.
I'm the assistant manager here at the Hollywood Library. I love it. I'm getting used to Hollywood. It's very different from Coral Springs. It's smaller but busy, a different population. I get to use my Spanish a lot more, so I'm really excited. Down at the south end of the county instead of the far north, so I'm enjoying it immensely, and getting to meet all the wonderful people here in Hollywood and
Yeah,
being closer to the beach. And
isn't that it's a busy place? It's right on the, if you're familiar with Hollywood, Florida, it is right on the center circle. It is right there. Parking can be a pain, but once you get inside the building, it's very pretty.
it's beautiful floor to ceiling windows. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous. And we just had Bob's Temmie robot here, so we got to introduce the robot to the public, and we're looking forward to having her back. And if you haven't had a chance to meet Temmie, she's at
North Regional as of right now. Yep, I installed it out there this morning. So, but talking about things coming up in the future here, our first story is about a thing that happened a couple days ago, but is going to happen again, and you kind of need some supplies. Did you save your eclipse glasses, Maria?
I do. I actually have them here in the building with me.
That is great. So 2 reasons I wanted to show this story. One, because this was an impressive amount of sunspots that are up, and the average person could just walk out in their backyard and see them, which was great if the clouds weren't covering us for the last 3 days. So I didn't get a chance to personally see them, but I did see some other people around the country who got a chance to. Really awesome. Number 2 is you need your eclipse glasses. Now, if you used your eclipse glasses last October, we hope you saved them. You checked them out from the library, at least here in Broward. If you're from outside of Broward, check with your local library to see what their rules and regs are about it. But make sure if you're going to look for sunspots that you're using your eclipse glasses. Did you get a chance to use them at all for these sunspots?
I did, and I'll tell you 2 really cool things. If you don't have your eclipse glasses, keep an eye on your email around March 1st. Keep an eye on your email around March 1st, because you might see something you like. If you are not signed up for the library's email, come into your library and sign up for the library's email so you can keep an eye on your email for March 1st, because we do have another eclipse coming.
Yep. And when you're going to look at something like the sun to try these sunspots out or do these, that's why you need to keep these eclipse glasses around. Even though an eclipse only is going to happen every so many decades, these are valuable things still, and you can use them and do that.
And see sunspots, for example.
And see sunspots. And what Maria was hinting at, March 1st. Pay attention. Bring your library card in to check out some more eclipse glasses. March 1st, not beforehand. Don't come in tomorrow. We're not going to help you with it. Sorry.
And the other thing is, you can also find out how to make your own eclipse glasses. You can visit the library, check out how to make your own eclipse glasses. There are ways you can do that. But with your handy dandy library card, if you have not gotten a pair of eclipse glasses, like I said, keep your eyes peeled for March 1st.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome. And also on this article, did you notice when I sent this to you, Maria, that very top line there about AI?
Yes, I did. I cracked up. I thought that was very, very funny considering some of the other things we're going to talk about.
Yeah. And the one line, if you find a mistake on spaceweather.com, rest assured it was made by a real human. So I felt that was like, okay, this is kind of cool. This is a fun little thing here. Our next story is all about the future of power. and flying kites underwater.
This was actually super cool. This is probably my favorite story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is one of those really amazing things that you want to talk about, but you can't until it actually happens. This has been in development for years. There was a story last year when they got the contract, and I couldn't put it on the show because it's not ready yet. Now it is. So we're putting it on. It's a Danish company out of Denmark, and they are putting it out near the Faroe Islands, which is up in northern, in between Iceland and Norway, a set of islands up there, and they get really high tides, which means distance between low tide and high tide, and that creates a lot of energy. And this is a kite that just flows through the water. You can see the picture of it right here easily, and it flaps up and down. And as it goes up and down in the waves, it creates energy. It absorbs that energy out of the waves and generates that just like you would with a wind turbine or turbines that are into dams. You know, like if you look at the Hoover Dam out west in the United States or things like that, where you've got water flowing past those turbines. This would be so nice, wouldn't it?
I just love the visual of it, because I think what's really special about it, one, is that the pattern, like if you've ever flown a kite and it really gets into the wind, you notice that when it dives, it does these swooping figure eights. And I'm a huge kite person, so I have probably about 15 kites at home.
Yeah.
And I know that when it starts doing those figure eights, you're just about losing control of that kite, and the wind can take it at any moment.
Yep. And you're exactly right. And you can see in this picture here just how big this thing is. It is just amazing. Now, obviously, this is not going to solve all the world's problems, because there's not a place everywhere. You can't just drop this off the coast here in Florida. Our tides are not going to support this thing being able to do things.
But that same pattern works underwater. That was that amazed me.
I know. Fluid dynamics. It's amazing. Here's one of the examples of it being towed out, which in the comment section, which sometimes comment sections are okay. I did see one about, well, why don't they just tow it behind a boat all the time then? Because you'd spend more energy powering the boat, driving it, than you would gain by having the thing drag behind the boat and doing its thing. So that's why it needs to be fixed in place.
And the current power does the rest. Literally, you need no energy from the boat
Zero.
at all.
Once you install it, you just get free energy out of it effectively. It is great. It's really a fun story. I am so happy that this thing came about and really happened. And we have another follow-up story for you, Maria. I don't know if you saw this one when we did it about 1.5 years ago.
I remember talking to you about it, because you actually, I wanted to ask, you actually visited one of these farms, right?
Sort of, yeah. It's interesting. How's that? So about 1.5 years ago, we did a story on blowflies and how they can tell the difference in whether you die or not, because it was part of a thing. You see it on CSI, you see it in the movies and TV shows, and is that really science? Does that really happen? They did a study, and yes, it is. That was back in 2022. Then they have a new study now that gets very well into this with microbes. So the microbes that are in your body start to digest, decompose your body, and they can track pretty well how long those microbes will take to take down your body. And they've had a good guesstimate of about a 7-day period up till recently. And now they've got it down to a 3-day period because of these. And I mean, right there, a 3-day period.
That's huge.
And we're not talking like, oh, well, we can tell he died 3 days ago because he just died 5 days ago, 6 days ago. This is like when they find a corpse that's a 1-year-old death, they can still track it down to a 3-day period, which is insane.
Yes, a corpse that's been sitting outdoors. And the fascinating part was that they tested this in different environments.
Yes.
That was crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
matter if it was in the desert, if it didn't matter if it was in the cold. These microbes are decomposing matter at the same rate, no
Yeah.
matter what environment it was in.
And they're
I'm
kind of like
blown
yeast.
away.
Yeah, they're kind of like yeast, where they come into the body from the outside. So as always, in the show notes. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Let me go grab that other one for you.
That was the other thing that I thought was really cool is they were talking about, like, these are not microbes that are naturally found in the environment. So they were trying to figure out where they're coming from, and they thought they were actually being carried into the tissues by the
Blowflies and things.
the
Yeah,
blowflies. Yeah, it was just fascinating.
yeah. So the actual study is there for you to read and go spend some time with if you want. Because this is one of those machine learning studies, AI, if you want to call it that, where they took all this information. You can see that I skimmed right past it because of the cool picture of the corpse. And all of the different types of microbes that they interacted with and cross-referenced and all the stuff like that. It is just, it's really intricate things. And so now you know for yourself that when you see this thing, if you see something on the news or you see something in a movie or whatever, you can kind of get a good feel for, is it real or not? Based on something like this, because investigators are now using this to solve real crimes. I want to see what they do with mummies. How far back can you actually do this? Obviously, mummies are probably not a good example because they desiccate them and they artificially desiccate them and do stuff. But yeah, I kind of want to see, like, just how far back can you use something like this?
That would be actually really cool. They were saying, though, even things that are just where we have just bone fragments, there are still things that, feed off of bones, and they are able to do it. So it'd be really cool to see.
When does a bone become a fossil?
Yeah. When does it officially lose all tissue that can be?
And if they can pin this back and say, well, here's this person from the Middle Ages, and we've now figured out exactly, based on the few microbes left in his bones, that they died on these days.
Well, that's the nice thing, is that's when we can go and actually start using radiocarbon dating.
Yeah.
So
it's just craziness.
That's probably the nice timeline where we can switch from one to the other.
Yes. But it'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
Then we have another AI story. In fact, we have two more AI stories. And I know people out there are like, oh, man, why are you talking? I am not always thrilled with AI stories either. But this is an interesting one because we now have 2 court cases that have established very specific, very concrete laws around what copyright claims you can make with AI, large language model stuff. One is there was a very large lawsuit out there by several authors saying that they were suing OpenAI, the people behind ChatGPT, over the fact that it was, quote unquote, stealing their work and unlawfully copying it. The other lawsuit was about the patent office and someone suing to say they wanted a patent for something, but wanted the patent to be assigned to an AI, not to a person. So the patent one is actually easier to understand. I know that sounds weird sometimes, but basically how the U.S. Patent Office in their court, there's a court in the patent office that has ruled on this and listened to arguments and done back and forth. You cannot get a patent on anything created solely by AI, whether that is software, whether that is a picture, whether for trademark purposes, a patent on a design. If it's done solely by AI, you cannot get a copyright, trademark, patent, anything on it. If it was AI, if it was a person designing it using AI, And there is the key part here is that this does not mean it has to have substantial, which was a legal term that the whole case revolved around. The human does not need to make substantial changes to what the AI put out for the human to get the patent.
So it's basically how the person words the query that they put into the AI. That is basically what they rule. The person can get the patent based on what they input into the AI. So it's all about how you specifically word what you are putting into the AI, which is the key that as librarians, we can help people understand and how to word exactly how you are asking what to do AI systems to do.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting because this is a case of scale.
Mm-hmm.
It takes humans a long time to be able to create things. And then with the age of computers, the number of patents skyrocketed because you're able to use computers to assist you with your CAD, computer assisted design drawings, and doing all the stuff. So you were able to create them so much faster, and companies were able to make get these patents so much faster. Which brings us back to the other story about how much faster these are. And basically, a judge has ruled that OpenAI did not break copyright. It was fair use. No one was harmed, which is a key part of copyright in this case, is that no one was harmed by someone taking these works. We'll use an example, Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. If you go read all the Tolkien works, the reason I'm using that is because that is still under copyright. And then you go write your own fantasy novel. You can't call them hobbits. You can't call them ents, but you can make up something else. And you can call them tree people, or you can call them halflings, or you can call them whatever you want. That is not copyright violation. You are inspired by, you are changing, you are doing, you are transforming, which is the key legal term. And the judge argued that that is what OpenAI is doing. They are not copying. They are learning and transforming what it learned into something new.
And that was specifically, I think, what they said. The authors who sued could not point out any texts where any of these chatbots quoted any of their direct writings in any parts at all in any of their responses. So they said, this is not, they're not, and they said they couldn't even verbally refer to them specifically, and it was very interesting on these very tiny points on which this case turned. Yeah.
And again, this is one of those things where to the average person, you're like, wow, that can't be right. The computer reads all these tens of millions of books overnight. That can't be right. That's what the law says they can do. Whether it's ethically right, whether it's morally right, whether it's legally right, are sometimes three different things. And people can be outraged and people cannot like it. But the article it's a 10-page article. Go dig into the actual judge's ruling and see what they really said, because there's still one point that the judge allowed them to continue on, but basically there will be zero damages because he threw out everything because nobody could prove they were damaged by ChatGPT existing.
But the judge did allow them to give him an opening to refile.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Yeah, it's not. This is not over. Obviously, it's not over. And the best way for it to all be over is Congress to act and actually pass a law.
Which I don't know.
At least in the United States. In Europe, they've got some other laws that there are some other cases going through, and we will see how that develops over there in Europe. But yeah.
And yesterday, I don't know if you saw, New York officially filed suit. So it's going to be interesting to see. That's a pretty big lawsuit. But New York has filed suit.
The New York Times is trying to basically say, no, you can't use the New York Times You can't read the New York Times to learn from the New York Times, which is a really interesting argument to make in court.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to find out what happens.
Yep. And I loved it too that it's officially been a year since the New York Times author reported that the original OpenAI chatbot went off the rails.
Yeah.
And tried to get the New York Times author to leave his wife and go with him. And he actually wrote a whole article yesterday saying that he feels that since he wrote that article, chatbots have been tamed. Artificial intelligence has been tamed. That it's disappointed. That he's disappointed that artificial intelligence has been so wiped clean and blandified because they're so terrified of AI going off the rails.
I think that shows where an author's bias reporter's bias can cause some issues there, because it wasn't that exciting. It was just, this was the first time you were encountering it. Mm-hmm. And now that you've encountered it another couple hundred times, it's not very exciting.
No.
And it's very bland because, there's a reason why certain things are popular, is because they're average and bland and easy to consume. And it's not new and different every time.
No. Although it was pretty funny because there was a car dealership's chatbot that a couple people tricked into offering cars for sale for $1.
People are still able to really manipulate these things. So I'm not afraid of this at all. Thank you so much, Miss Maria, for being here today. Let me throw up our final slide. As always, if there's a librarian or library you want to see featured on the show, reach out. creationstation@broward.org, and go subscribe. Make sure you see these things, not just live, but in your podcast feed. Have a great week, everybody.
Come visit the Hollywood Library. Have a wonderful week.